right, we're all ready for another edition of the Billy Slater Podcast. So much to talk about this week. Hip drop tackles in the news. The South Sydney Rabbitohs, where do they go to from here? And the future of Jason Demetriou is under the microscope as well. Billy Slater, hello.
Hello, Salty, and welcome back to the podcast, mate. Where there is injuries, there is opportunity, and I'm sure we'll see some young players stand up. For the Broncos last week, Tristan Sailor got his opportunity. I thought he was outstanding. And young Ben Tiakura, he was good. He got his debut game against the Melbourne Storm as well. So where there is injury, there is opportunity.
Yes, and we'll talk about that very soon. One of the biggest talking points in the game, though, is the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Billy, wherever you go, someone's got their thoughts on where the club is at and how they dig themselves out of this hole that they're in.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone has the answers. The one thing we all know is it's got to be the hard way. You can't take your shortcuts to get to where they want to go. And they've been dealt a few blows now. Latrell Mitchell has been charged with a striking charge and or a dangerous contact charge, and he looks like he's going to miss 3 weeks. So, look, they're probably going to be forced to make some changes. Obviously, find a new fullback, and I think this is the great opportunity for South Sydney to really reset their season and start again. Throw some changes in and amongst the team and go again.
Billy, did they throw caution to the wind this week against the Sharks, knowing that they've got the bye the week after, and that can be the real time for a reset? Like, could Jason Demetriou this week, once teams come out 4:00 on Tuesday, just throw names out there, see how it all falls, whether it be Jack White and shifting into the halves, whether it be young Jai Gray coming in at fullback to replace Latrell, just throw it all out there this week and then have that reset with the bye that's probably coming at the right time for them?
Well, by all reports, Salty, he needs to. By the reports saying that he's got 80 minutes of coaching life left unless he turns things around. I just look at the big picture. I don't read into that too much because that hasn't been confirmed from the South Sydney Rabbitohs and the board. But everyone's under pressure when you're not performing. When your team's not performing, the players are under pressure, the coach is under pressure. And I just think it's a great opportunity to reset and make some changes. Look, they don't have to be drop changes. I think Jack White needs to come a little bit closer to the football. He's a wholehearted player, and that's exactly what they need at the moment. You see Cameron Murray doing what he does in the middle of the field. I would play Jack White on the left-hand side of the field in the halves, and I would move Cody Walker over to the other side and get him out of his comfort zone and just play a different style of game. Young Jai Gray has been impressing in the New South Wales Cup. He's a young Queensland boy. He's not very tall, but he's not a small guy. He's built quite well. And the two attributes that I've seen from watching him play in the New South Wales Cup, he's very fast and energetic. He's going to be in the game, and he's tough. He'll put his body on the line. So I think it's a great opportunity to blood the young fella at fullback, and it's changed the halves up a little bit. You might spark something.
Cameron Murray is one player that just gives his all each and every week. He can't do much more.
I wouldn't have thought so. No, Cameron Murray has been impressive. Every time he takes the field, you know what you're going to get from a guy like Cam Murray, and that's why he's the captain. He sets the standard. He leads by example. He leads by his actions. So, look, I think someone like Cam Murray is, I'm sure he wouldn't be, but he could hold his head high with the performances that he's put in the opening 5 rounds.
You've seen this happen before, Billy, and sometimes in this day and age as well, there's that need for the quick fix. You've already touched on that it's got to be hard work.
Yep.
You've seen it go one of either two ways. We've seen teams, haven't we, been in this predicament after 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rounds and still managed to go on runs to make finals, but that's because they did dig deep, and we've seen others try for quick fixes and it just spirals out of control.
Salty, I was a part of a team back in 2012 that lost 5 in a row in the middle of the season, and we ended up winning the premiership. It's not the end. It's not the end. It can be turned around, and there's enough class and there's enough quality of player in the South Sydney Rabbitohs squad to turn it around. Look, when you're down, you're down, and off the back of the poor performances and the results, Latrell Mitchell's been suspended. Lachlan Ilias is playing reserve grade. He's unfortunately broke his leg. He looks like he's going to be out for the rest of the year. When you're down, you're down. But the one thing you need to do is you need to stick together. You need to stay galvanized as a unit and as a club and as a group. But the unfortunate thing for the South Sydney Rabbitohs is it's not just the opening 5 rounds. This was happening at the end of last year. There was the turmoil with Sam Burgess and what went on there. I'm not across all of that. Most of that was kept indoors and behind closed doors, which I think it probably should have been. But there was some rumblings back in 2023 that something wasn't right at South Sydney, and that's transferred into this season. So if they're willing to get to the bottom of it, it's not the end of the road, but it can fall away quick if you don't galvanise together.
All right, that's South Sydney. Actually, I just off topic a little bit. I mean, what you're saying there is pretty much what the Gold Coast Titans have got to go through, and just about any other team that's just struggling to find their way at this early stage of the season.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough down the bottom, and you feel it's so far away. But at the end of the day, our game's a really simple game, and everyone plays their role. And when you've got 13 players on the field performing their role, it becomes a lot easier. And the Gold Coast Titans are going through a tough period at the moment. I thought they showed a fair bit of resilience at the back end of the game yesterday against the Cowboys, but they're still searching for their first win. They're the only team winless after 5 rounds in this competition, and I'm sure Des Hasler will be trying to find some answers within his group to get them back on track.
All right, speaking of the Gold Coast Titans, there was an incident in their game, in their loss against the North Queensland Cowboys, a hip drop tackle. Chad Townsend sent to the sin bin. He's actually been charged, grade 1 charge, so he just faces a fine there. But we saw another hip drop incident on the weekend. It was in that just wild game in the wet on Friday. The Roosters going down to the Bulldogs, only just in the end, but Victor Radley sent to the sin bin for what was a hip drop tackle, well, described as a hip drop tackle on Stephen Crichton. Do you think that was, Billy? And are we jumping at shadows a little bit here with a couple of those hip drop incidents that occurred over the weekend?
Yeah, look, I don't think so, Salty. I think we've got a pretty good grasp on it, and I think the referees do a really good job of policing it and adjudicating around it. We've had a couple of young guys, sit on the sidelines. Young Lachlan Galvin is one. Max Plath is another one that have got a couple of week holidays for a hip drop, and they were pretty bad ones. It's when you grab on and you twist your body and use your body as a weight to bring the player down. Now, sometimes the momentum of the tackle can influence it, but I really think that the match review committee have got it right, and they've got a good understanding of when it is really accidental. Look, I think they're all accidents. I don't think anyone goes out there to deliberately do it. We see some inexperienced players like Lachlan Galvin and Max Plath that haven't played a whole heap of first grade football. It's just a way of trying to get someone down, and they're just not experienced enough and haven't got enough reps at training to get that out of their game. So I really feel for those guys. I think they've got it right in terms of the match review committee. I don't think Victor Radley's was actually a hip drop. I think that was, he kept his body square, or he kept his hips square and didn't rotate them to land on the back. Whereas Chad Townsend's was a little bit different. He actually swung his hip into the leg. I know he was sort of on the ground a little bit, but I actually think they got it right. It wasn't a bad one, hence why it was a grade 1. First offence, fine. It's just about trying to help our players be more aware of this situation. And I think it's going down the right way. I think we're in a really good place. There was one a couple of weeks ago with Jack Whiten that sort of went it was wasn't a penalty and there was no match review committee. I thought it would have been maybe a penalty, but there mustn't have been any contact with the opposite player. But they do a really good job, and they do it really thoroughly. I think we're in a pretty good place.
Tell you one team that's in a really good place, Manly, after that win on Saturday against Penrith. And Daly Cherry-Evans, let's talk about him first, because he was the star of the show. It was his day, breaking the records, most games played for the Seagulls. Billy, you've played with Daly in rep football. You played against him at club football. You coach him, and he's your captain for Queensland at State of Origin level. And in his mid-30s now, and arguably he hasn't played any better.
Yeah, that's a pretty good argument. I concur with that. He's a wonderful player, and he's playing as good as I've seen him play. He's very controlled and comfortable with his game, and I feel that he's very comfortable in his life in general. He's very settled off the field. He's got a lovely family, wife Vessa, and 3 daughters who we saw on the field after the game on the weekend. And yeah, it's a huge achievement. To be the most capped Manly Seagull of all time, and you ever think about some of those players like the Cliffy Lyonses and the like. There's been some wonderful players at that great club, and he's played the most games for that club out of any of them. So what an achievement it has been for him. He's a one-club player. You don't see that too often these days, but in terms of the person, in terms of his career, it's been fantastic, and I'm glad that I've had the opportunity to play alongside him. I'm glad to have the opportunity to him be a part of the current Queensland team and the captain of the Queensland State of Origin team at the moment, and he's leading that group really well. So really happy for him on the weekend that his team could actually play the way that they did, and they could celebrate and enjoy that victory and that milestone.
Billy, it's funny with DCE, and it's good to talk to you about him, because I don't think there's a more, say, respectful player in the game. There's a lot of guys who have a lot of respect for the game and those around it, but Daly is one of those guys. You ring him or text him, he'll phone you or text you back straight away. He's good for a chat. I've seen him after games for ages signing autographs and the like many players do, but he's always got time for anybody in the game, no matter who they are, whether they're opponents, little kids, whoever, even humble commentators. But he's just so great to deal with, and I'm pleased that people in this latter stage of his career are seeing that side of him more often as well.
No, he's a great person, Salty. He's a genuine, really good person, and he's obviously been brought up well up there in Mackay. Spent some time down at Redcliffe as well. So, look, his parents, his family, his siblings have done a great job in helping him grow up as a person. His footy club, his teammates. Like I said, he's a great family man. He's a wonderful husband and father, and he's just a really good person, and one that you sort of want in your environment. You become products of your environment, and with people and players like Daly Cherry-Evans, well, everyone around him is going to grow as people. They're going to become better footballers, because that's what good players do. They help the teammates around them. So that's where it all starts, is being a good person, and he's certainly that.
Manly the real deal?
Ooh, it's a good question. There's a few teams that I'm really liking at the moment. The Warriors are one. Look, Manly on their day, and if they can keep fully healthy, I think they've got a really good ingredients, and Luke Brooks, Daly. I think Croker's very underrated, and Tom Trbojevic at the back. He holds the key. We've seen in the past when he goes down, Manly really lose that strike. I think they've got a real strike weapon in Ola Kawatu. Their middle forwards are holding their own, and you have to against the pinnacle of the competition in Penrith. So they're doing a lot right. Tolu Kola's a player of the future and's got elite speed. So they've got a lot of good ingredients. They've just got to hold it together for long periods of time, and then really hit their straps at the end of the year. They're certainly contenders.
Let's talk about one of the great games of the season. It occurred back on Thursday night, Melbourne against Brisbane. Kevin Walters, the Broncos coach, said he's happy that we all enjoyed the game. He didn't. Said that there was a lot that he didn't like about the performance. But I think deep down, Billy, that Kevy would have liked the fact that his team is really competing well at the moment. That was a high quality game. You had the best seat in the house. You were sidelined there at Amy Park. I mean, what a game for us to just sit and watch.
Yeah, I think deep down, no Reece Walsh, no Payne Haas. The Broncos really held their gloves up and they fought hard. And I think Kevy will be deep down proud of that. Coaches tend to be defensive orientated, and I'm sure Craig Bellamy wouldn't have liked the 32 points put against his team also. But I was like you, Salty. I thought it was incredible. I loved the match. I didn't know which way it was going to go. It was swinging left and right. And Ezra Mam scored, first in the second half off that Nathan Blacklock style run down the middle of the field. And, it was just highly entertaining. And it made me sit back and appreciate where our game is at the moment. I think our game is sitting in a really, really good position that our elite players, our most talented players can outlay their talent. And I think of Ezra Mam, I think of Cameron Munster, Ryan Pappenhausen. Eli Katoa was fantastic. I thought he was the player of the match. So, I just really appreciated the game, sitting back and watching it and calling it on the sideline. So, I thought it was a wonderful game, but coaches are never happy, are they?
No, you only have to coach 3 games a year. How do you think these guys are going for 24 games a year? How do they do it? Craig was, again, I think we should just have a camera planted on Craig Bellamy, put it up on 9 Now, and even have pay-per-view, I think, would be,
highly entertaining. Get a microphone in there too. That'd be even better.
You rarely made an error, did you? But when you did... Did you look
I still don't make mistakes, Salty.
No, but well, okay, I'll change that question. If a teammate made an error, did you have a little glance up to the coach's box just to see the reaction of Craig?
Never, and definitely never when I made the error. I could have. I actually sat in the coach's box with Craig a few times when I was injured, and it just made me think about what he was saying about me when I'd make the error. So I stopped doing that pretty quick.
There's one Storm player that a few people give him raps. Yeah, Nick Meaney. He continues to deliver, playing in another position this year in the centres, and he's started off the season as if that's the only position he's ever played in.
Yeah, he's a wonderful player and a real selfless player, a real team first player. And I knew Nick Meaney was a very consistent player before he got to the Melbourne Storm, but his versatility has been really appreciated at the Melbourne Storm. He's played fullback for long periods of time while Ryan Pappenhausen was out and did a wonderful job. I think he was close to the player of the year there last year, and then he's played in the 6 jersey when needed, and now he's making a home in the centres. I've always thought that Nick Meaney would make a really good centre, because to be a good centre, you've got to have good principles and good work ethic. I look at Stephen Crichton's game, and he's probably the best defensive centre in the game, and he's got great movements. But Nick Meaney is a really hard worker. He studies the game, he understands the game, and he's making a real fist of playing in the centres. I think he's an integral part of the Melbourne Storm at the moment, although he doesn't, sit with the highlighted names of Cameron Munster and Ryan Pappenhausen. He's a really important cog for the Melbourne Storm.
All right, lots to like about both of those teams from Thursday night. One game, we touched on it briefly in regard to the hip drop tackle, but just a remarkable game of football was the Bulldogs win over the Roosters, just scraping over the line in the end after leading 26-0. They won 30-26. The Dogs, what a game.
It had everything, didn't it? It had send-offs. It had people being ruled out for HIAs. 26-0. The Bulldogs just started on fire. And I don't know where the Roosters have gone after their impressive display. I think it was round 2 or 3 against the South Sydney Rabbitohs. I was watching that game thinking, wow, the Roosters are the real deal. But they just haven't picked that form up ever since that game, and the Bulldogs were all over them. And then they went down to 12 men with Dom Young going not to the sin bin. He got sent off for that hit on Blake Taff. And then they just started their comeback. And all of a sudden they were in the fight. Even went down to 11 men when Victor Radley got sin binned, and they still kept coming. So it was an impressive game, but it was a game that had it all.
Yeah, it certainly did. Good one for the Bulldogs fans too, to see their team now win a couple of games early in the season.
Well, they've picked up a few injuries as well, so they've got a tough task this week going down to the Melbourne Storm down in Melbourne. But they're fighting. They're fighting the Bulldogs. Cameron Ciraldo is doing a wonderful job there. I think Josh Addo-Carr might be back this week, but Bronson Cherry got his first game in the centres. I think he'll hold that position. And I think Carraz is a really good player as well. So they've got some wonderful players there, and they're building their team, and I think they're doing a lot right.
Andrew Johns talks about Carraz with his running style, with the legs going everywhere, and says you'd hate to tackle someone like him.
Yeah, he's just a really awkward style of runner, but he's deceptively strong. He looks really strong. I think to have a guy like Stephen Crichton to look up to and to actually model your game off in terms of centres defensively, I think that's a great opportunity for him. And it wouldn't surprise me if he developed and grew his game immensely over the next 12-month period, 18 months. I think he can be one of the stars of our game.
This is the Billy Slater Podcast. Peter Basolda sitting in for Mark Levy, and Billy Slater here, of course, obviously. Now, it's time for the Billy M Awards. There's no controversy here with who's judging and anything like that, Billy, because this is all you.
Yeah, I'm judging this one. Billy M. I keep thinking it's Billy Moore, Billy M. Queenslander.
the Billy M Awards, the most impressive teams from round 5.
Well, I've got a few. I've nearly got a podium. I thought the Warriors were really impressive. They're playing really good as a team. The Manly Seagulls obviously did a great job to get up for Daly's record-breaking milestone, but the team that I'm going to give it to are the Canberra Raiders. I thought they were the team of the week. They were really disappointing last week, and their coach Ricky Stewart didn't hide his frustration with his team. He was very honest in the post-match press conference last week, and even in the press conferences throughout the week, he was very open and honest about how disappointed he was with his players. But boy, didn't they turn it around, and they were excellent against the Parramatta Eels on the weekend. And in particular, some of their younger players, like Matt Timoko, Xavier Savage, were super. Young Ethan Strange, he looks a real player, and it just looked like last year when Jack Whiten decided to leave the club that it's the end. We can't see past that, but sometimes when things happen at your club and players move on and you think you can't replace them, something else happens and all of a sudden it's a blessing in disguise. Not to say Jack Whiten would be an asset at the Raiders. I just think this young fella, he's a real player of the future, and I really enjoy watching him play. So I thought the Raiders were the team of the week.
Billy, what about Jordan Rapana? We're thinking career over about 15 minutes into the game when he went down holding his knee. An hour later, he's back out there bustling tackles and the like. He's a marvel, isn't he?
Yeah, it just shows you how tough our players are, doesn't it? And he's always played with that toughness and that courage, Jordan Rapana. And look, I believe it was a meniscus issue where it was the meniscus is a little pad in between, right in the middle of your knee, and when it gets a little tear and it flips over, it can be really painful. It can actually lock your knee up. So for him to fight back and play through that, I think that's infectious within your group, and they got some tough players in that Canberra team. They hang their hat on playing tough and being tough, and Jordan Rapana certainly held that standard of that club.
And just one other Canberra player I want to ask you about, Jamal Fogarty. Boy, there'd be a few clubs that would love to have a number 7 like him at the moment. We almost didn't see his NRL career. Got an opportunity at the Titans. He was with Parramatta, but he was playing some terrific footy for a long time at the Burleigh Bears in the Host Plus Cup. But it's great, isn't it, now that he's one of the leading number 7s in the game, or at least right up there, playing some really good footy.
He's got great control about his game. He's got a wonderful kicking game, and he controls that. I even seen him put in a little chip and chase. If he sees an opportunity, he's going to back himself, and he does his job. He does his job. He makes his tackles, and it just goes to show you that not every player in the NRL starts at 18 or 19. Some players have to bide their time and work on their craft and their game and their development, and everyone develops at different stages. So just because you're not playing in the NRL at 19 years old doesn't mean it's career over. Jamal Fogarty is a great example of that, and he's doing a wonderful job there. Helping a young half next to him in Ethan Strange, start his career out, and he's taken a lot of pressure off him.
Certainly is. All right, that's your impressive team for the round, the Canberra Raiders. What about in the Billy M's, your most impressive player for round 5?
Well, my most impressive player, Salty, is...
Few candidates.
There are plenty of candidates, but this guy stood out for me, and he's playing in a team that's really united at the moment, and he's leading it, and he's a star in it. His name's Shaun Johnson. I just think he is playing as good as I've ever seen him play. He's a very different player, and he's got different attributes now to when he first started his NRL career. I remember playing against Shaun Johnson when he was 19, 20 years old, and he just had blistering pace. He had great footwork, and he'd blow you away with his speed. Whereas now he's actually playing slow. His ball playing, some of the tries he laid on and the balls that he passed on the weekend. There was one to Rocco Berry, another one to Jackson Ford, where he just played that slow that the opposition thought that they can't get the ball anymore, so I may as well slide. And he's just got great sleight of hand. He looks like he's really enjoying his football, and I think the Warriors are going somewhere, and it'll be off the back of Shaun Johnson.
He's backing up as well too, Billy. When a couple of tries he scored, he's the one there backing up. I mean, he's a player that is in his last few seasons playing the game, and there he was when the opportunity was there. He's the one putting himself in the position to support the player making the break. Well,
I got asked the question before the season started on who do you think will win the Daly M, and I just watching the Warriors last year. They were so consistent, and what Andrew Webster has done with that team, I just thought they're going to be a consistent team again. And Shaun Johnson is going to be front and center in everything good that they do. So I think he'll win the Daly M this year. And if he can stay fit and the Warriors can keep with that consistency, I think he's in for a real shot at it. And the one thing that the Warriors do well is you think about those key position players. Wade Egan is having a wonderful season. Chance Nickel-Cooks to come back, and Tamade Martin, he's filling in for the young fellow that broke his leg, unfortunately.
Luke Metcalf,
Metcalf, and they play really good as that little unit. All those little plays in and around the ruck, you see the tries scored, and they're all there. They're all supporting, and they're all anticipating something happening. And that really excites me about a footy team when they're all doing that. Those key position players, and they're a wonderful side, and they're humming along nicely.
Now, Billy, we have got, as we come back to the Billy Slater podcast, thanks to Ram Trucks, eats everything else for breakfast. We've got some listener questions for you.
Okay, shoot away.
Not sure this one is from Archie B. Now, Billy, not sure if you saw during the Broncos Storm game, but there was a moment where Ryan Pappenhausen lost his shoe. Tristan Saylor flung it about 15 metres. What do you reckon? Is this fair game or not on? Did you ever do this? No, of course he
I
wouldn't.
can't.
Actually, or did it ever happen to you?
I wouldn't do something like that, Salty.
No.
Yeah, maybe in the schoolyard or something like that I would have.
Your
But
number 9 might have.
yeah. Look, I remember James Maloney was at the Melbourne Storm for a while. I remember that was a part of his game. But look, it's a bit of a laugh. I don't know if it's. I think they started penalising people and not suspending, but maybe fining people for doing it. So I didn't actually pick that one up. But if you can get away with it, you can get away with it.
Now, this one is from Eka. He says, "Hi, Billy. After watching the Dragons Knights game on Friday night, it got me thinking, what are the worst conditions that you've ever played in?"
Yeah, that was torrential rain, wasn't it? And there was a couple of inches of water. I remember playing at Leichhardt Oval one day. It was actually a couple of days after an Origin. It was like that weekend after you play a State of Origin. So you already, emotions have come down. You're trying to get yourself back up, and it was pelting down at Leichhardt Oval. And if McDonald Jones had 2 inches of rain, well, Leichhardt was 3-4 inches of rain. It was like proper wet, and I really didn't want to be there. So I remember playing that game. There's I'll tell it. The funny story in that game, actually, I was noticeably playing poor. Anyway, so Craig Bellamy sent a message down to our trainer, which is Adam O'Brien, the coach of the Knights now. And he sent a message down to our trainer, he was a consistent coach who ran it on the field. And he said, "You tell Billy, if he doesn't want to be out there, you tell him he can come up and sit next to me in the box." Anyway, so he used a couple of other words in between those words, as you could imagine. So Adam sort of starts running away to come and work out how to tell me this message without sort of using those words. And here's the walkie-talkie, going off, "Adam, Adam, Adam." So Adam runs back, and Craigie goes, "You make sure you tell him word for word." So he did. He come out and told me word for word. He made sure, he said, "This is coming from the coach." So, but I knew I was playing. I was playing in a dinner suit, and I really didn't want to be there. But I nearly took him up on it. I nearly went and sat up there in the box with him. He could have played.
Did you get the win?
No, I don't think so. Might have had a few teammates with the same mentality.
All right. Oh, I'd hate to cross Craig Bellamy. Anyway, now to send through your listener questions, email us at billyslaterpodcast@9.com.au. That's billyslaterpodcast@9.com.au. Billy, round 6, Friday night, Battle of Brisbane. Should be close to a full house at Suncorp Stadium. Now, team news, as far as the Dolphins are concerned, there'll be no Felice Kafusi, no Herbie Farnworth. Tom Flegler, though, he's a chance of playing this week, so there's a boost there. But for Brisbane, already without Adam Reynolds, Dean Mariner is going to be out. Ezra Mam limped off training earlier today with what looked like a knee issue, so he's in some doubt for Friday night, but there is a chance that Reece Walsh will be up and about to play in this one.
Yeah, I was talking to Reece actually at the Melbourne Storm game last Thursday, and he said that he might be a chance of playing this game. So that's really positive news for the Broncos. He's already missed a few games, so if they can get Reece back in and amongst all these injuries that are going on, that'll certainly help them. I wouldn't be surprised if Tristan Saylor moved to the halves, maybe to number 6 if Ezra Mam doesn't play. But look, at the end of the day, sometimes we do focus on who isn't there. There's going to be some quality players that are there. Great news that Tom Flegler is a chance of playing this game. Knowing Big Fleg and knowing that this is his former team, it'd take a fair bit to keep him out of it. So if he doesn't play, he'll be genuinely injured. So that's great news there, and hopefully he does take the field. But there's enough quality on show in terms of Katoni Staggs, Selwyn Cobbo. It's going to be a beauty. I'm actually travelling up to Brisbane for this one. Really looking forward to watching it up there in the atmosphere that is going to be really exciting.
Yeah, it will be. Cannot wait for it. And we'll, of course, be able to watch that one live and free on 9 and 9 now. So, yeah, bring it on Friday night. A couple of other games I want to get your thoughts on. Storm v. the Bulldogs. Bulldogs up and about for this one, Billy?
Yeah, they beat the Melbourne Storm down at Amy Park last year. So, I think they were up 26-0 or something at the start of the game and ended up winning 26-12. So, look, it's, they're doing a lot right, the Bulldogs. I just like, that core group of players in Grant, Pappenhausen, Hughes and Munster. That was the first time that they've played in those positions, starting the game for over a year and a half. And, the more footy that they get together, they're wonderful players individually, but together they can really do something this year. And hopefully they can all stay on the paddock and build that combination. I just think they'll be too strong for the Bulldogs. But, like I said, the Bulldogs are doing a lot right.
Yeah, they are, but loving the Storm at the moment as well. What about this game, Warriors v Manly?
Ooh, two form teams at the moment. They're both coming off very impressive wins. And the one thing about these two teams is they love using the football. Manly, they're probably the team that like to use the football out of their own end the most. And they've had some joy and some success in the early rounds. So I'd expect that to continue. And we've spoken about the Warriors earlier on with their combinations through the middle of the field with Johnson and Wade Egan, Adam Fanua-Blake. So, look, it's over in New Zealand, and that's going to sway me towards the Warriors.
Then we touched on this one right at the start when talking about the Rabbitohs. They're up against the Sharks, who themselves, Billy, will want to capitalise on the 2 points they got against Canberra before the bye, because it's been a little bit of a rollercoaster ride for Cronulla to start off the season.
Yeah, it has been. And, when you come up against a team that their backs are against the wall, you really make sure that your preparation is on, and they've had a couple of weeks to prepare for this game. I think Cronulla will jump out of the blocks really well here. To have a little break at the start of the year and then launch into a game like this. No Latrell Mitchell. I just think the Sharks will be too strong.
All right, some mouth-watering games to look forward to for round 6 of the competition. Billy, it's been fun. Thanks for having me, sitting in the chair for Mark Levy this week.
No worries. It's been a lot of fun, and thanks for coming in and filling in.
Yeah, it's been very enjoyable. So this has been the Billy Slater Podcast for Ram Trucks. Eats everything else for breakfast. We'll see you next week, Billy.
See you, mate.
This year, NRL on 9 is your one-stop shop for all footy.
That's right, Freddie. Not about the highlights. Action. 7 days a week.
Billy and Gus Podcast, get that on your drive on the way home. Immortal Behaviour. Grab a seat on the couch for that. And, of course, my favourite, Freddie and the Onion.
The best footy brains, the biggest games.
Don't trust the algorithm. Subscribe to NRL on 9 and get all your entertainment there.